Yeah, welcome along. Week 8 of the last week of the course, incredibly. So here we are, almost, well, 2 months basically after we started this, in a different season, in a different level of lockdown. Um, so yeah, what we're going to do this evening is we're going to be looking at the theme of mindfulness of reality, which is the last corresponds to the last chapter in the book. So we're going to begin by doing some meditation. So the program will be a little bit different from previous nights. So yeah, we'll start with meditation, and then we'll have a look at, well, I'm going to basically ask you for some feedback from the course. We'll have a little poll at that point, and you can give a bit of feedback as to how you found the course. And after that, I'll just tell you a little bit about what to do next, or what you could do next, if you want to take your practice further. So that's yeah, that'll be yeah, just some stuff that you can do to give you a bit of a sense. Because I know at this stage of the course, people are beginning to wonder, like, where can I go with this? What can I do next? And then after that, we'll have a little break, and yeah, it'll be an opportunity after the break to ask any questions that you might have. So yeah, there might be quite a few questions, as we've been together for 8 weeks and you've been engaging with this material for 8 weeks. So yeah, last chance to ask a few questions. And then we'll do a metta bhavana. The practice we learned last week, we'll look at that also from the perspective of mindfulness of reality. And then we'll have our groups at the end of the night, and it'll be an opportunity to take stock of all the things that we've done on the course, and also be an opportunity just to think about where you want to go next. And then we'll all come back together and we'll just do a little ritual together just to finish off the course. So that's this evening. So it'll be slightly different from the previous evenings. So hopefully that'll all kind of work for everybody. But what we are going to do, which we have been doing, is we're going to start with some meditation. And so like I said, tonight the theme is mindfulness of reality. So I'll just kind of give you a bit of a sense of the ground that we've covered so far. So we have been on a bit of a journey together. It's really felt like that, our journey. So if you remember 8 weeks ago, we started just by trying to straighten our lives out a little bit, just make our life run a little bit more smoothly so that it's easier to be mindful. It's easy to actually pay attention to the content of our experience moment by moment. And then we began to look at one of the most fundamental practices, really, of mindfulness, which it all kind of comes out of, which is mindfulness of the body. So knowing and being in our body, knowing what it's doing, knowing where we are, attending to our sense experience, just at the basic, ordinary day-to-day level. And how we learned that by starting from there, our sense of what's going on becomes more subtle and becomes more refined. And we begin to see the different strands of our experience a little bit more clearly, beginning with Vedana. So we begin to notice that our experience, it feels pleasant, painful, or neither one nor the other. And how, if we're aware of that, we can start being a little bit more creative. So rather than stimulus and the Vedana that comes from that just automatically leading into some kind of behavior, we can notice that there's actually different options available to us through the awareness that we're cultivating, and how that creates other options, that creates the possibility for creativity. Then we saw how we can also be aware of chitta, of our mind, the quality in particular of our mind, noticing if our mind's going in a helpful direction or an unhelpful direction. And when we move into mindfulness of dharmas, or bringing the teachings to mind, we see how we can actually have some kind of creative influence into how the mind emerges, how the mind develops moment by moment. So that's mindfulness of dharmas, or bringing the teachings to mind. So by then, at that stage of the course, we'd really had quite a clear sense of many of the primary, or the most fundamental aspects of our experience of body, of Vedana, pleasant, painful, and neutral experiences, and then the mind that emerges as well, the kind of mind that we have moment by moment. And also we start seeing how we can have an influence on that through how we respond to the mind that we have and what happens in our lives. We also realized at that point in the course that what we say and what we do has an influence on our mind, in the same way that the way our mind is influences what we say and what we do, and the way that we say what we say and the way that we do what we do. So then we kind of, in a way, turned outwards. So having been quite introspective, we turned outwards to pay attention to our external environment, in terms of the natural environment and also in terms of the created environment. So looking at things like art, music, poetry, and how through that we can begin to take on or begin to see things through the perspective of somebody else's sensibility. And that in a way, last week we developed that further by seeing how we can begin not only to be aware of our own experience, but to be aware that other people exist and themselves have experience. So we try to actually enter into imaginatively into the lives of others. So that's what we looked at last week. So we come this week, in a way, not to a different, object of awareness. It's almost mindfulness of reality is about seeing that if we're able to be aware of any aspect of our experience, whether it's the body, whether it's Vedana, whether it's other people, whether it's the world around us, we can actually begin to see it more clearly for what it really is. We can begin to understand its true nature. So this is, in a way, the ultimate aim of Buddhism, you could say, is to bring about this profound shift in the way that we perceive things. So I want to talk a little bit about what that means, and we're going to do a little bit of practice around that. So one of the truths, I suppose, of Buddhism is that all things change. Yeah, so everything that we can experience, whether it's an internal experience, whether it's a mood or a Vedana or our body, it's changeable. It doesn't stay the same forever. And the same goes for the external world, for the weather, the earth, the whole universe even. Everything's in this process of flux. So this is really important that we understand this. And a lot of our suffering, a lot of our distress arises because we don't see this. We don't see it coming. We make assumptions about things staying the same. And then when they don't, we get really upset about it. We particularly probably notice this at the moment just because there's so much uncertainty around. We really feel the texture of what change means in our lives. And a lot of the time we don't really like it very much. So in a sense, we're trying to grow up, we're trying to develop, we're trying to mature so that we can embrace the fact of change and also respond to the opportunities that it gives. So one of the things that follows from the truth of change is that because everything's changing, because nothing is completely stable, we can't ultimately own anything. We can only own things for a certain period of time, and then the ownership passes to somebody else. And that becomes abundantly clear when we die. So as someone once said, there's no pocket in a shroud. So ultimately, even our breath, which we identify with as being, in a way, synonymous with life, ends at one time. When we die, our breath it comes in and our breath goes out, and that doesn't come in again. So even our breath, even our body, is not something that we can control, and therefore it's not something we can own. So that's the way the Buddha talks about it in one teaching. He talks about the fact that our lack of ownership, our lack of the ability to ultimately own anything, is basically a doorway into this kind of liberating insight into change. It just let things be without needing to control or own or enforce our will upon them. So what we're going to do in this practice of the mindfulness of breathing is just see if we can begin to approach this truth. See if we can begin to approach the fact that we can't ultimately own anything, but all that arises is impermanent, is subject to change, and therefore is beyond our control. So we're just going to explore this. So I just invite you to set up for your meditation practice. and make yourself comfortable. And then in a moment, I'll lead us in a period of mindfulness of breathing, where we're going to explore this fact of change. So making sure that you're going to be able to sit without being interrupted. And seeing if you can let go of any expectations that you might have, any predictions of what this meditation might be. And just being open to what unfolds. So beginning by developing a sensitivity to what's actually happening. So the touch of our skin against our clothing, against what we're sitting on. The touch of our sense of hearing against what we can hear, against sounds. The touch of our nose against odors. The touch of our tongue against our mouth. And the touch of our mind itself against thoughts. So it's as if we're aware of our senses and the objects of our senses. And how that is a flow. It's more like a flock of birds or a school of fish than something mechanical or electronic. And our experience of our senses kind of constellates around this strange thing we call mind, the heart, a sense of mood, or atmosphere. So we can feel constricted or expansive, heavy or light, dark or bright, gloomy or optimistic. All these colours that flood our mind. The breath too touches our body. As it comes in through our nose or our mouth, flows into our lungs, through our throat, and all those movements arise that we discovered a number of weeks ago. And even the breath is not really a thing. It's a whole series of experiences and events. It's a process, it's a flow. It consists of movement and rhythm and feeling. So if you get distracted, that too is an example of change. One moment you're attending to this, the next moment you're attending to that. So what mindfulness enables is continuity within that process of change. So a deepening, a gathering within that flux, within that flow. So without gripping the breath, without holding on to it or grasping it, just being curious about it and seeing what it does. Particularly sensitive to the changeable nature of it. And placing a count at the end of the out breath. So moving into the first stage of the practice. without becoming rigid when you do that, or overly forceful or controlling. So again, what we're trying to do is just develop a continuity, a deepening engagement with the breath through the counting. Moving now into the second stage, where the count comes just before the inflow of breath. And notice the way that you don't have to make the breath happen. You don't have to will it or force it or cajole it. It just happens. So just let it happen. And then let go of counting breaths. And seeing if you can relinquish that sense of the breath being mine and just let it be there. Let your body be there. Let your awareness be there. So there's just breath happening. There's no you and your breath. There's just breathing. It doesn't belong to anybody in the same way that the wind doesn't belong to anybody. But it still moves and animates. Life doesn't belong to us. We belong to life. So if there's any sense of directing or focusing, just relax that now and just sit. So what I wanted to do now is just talk a little bit about some of the things that are on offer that we're doing online to support people's practice. And before I say that, the essence of the things that we do really is about people coming together and hearing from somebody who's got a little bit more experience than them, and then having a bit of an opportunity to talk about what they're experiencing in the light of what they've heard and in the light of what they've practiced. So that kind of communication really is the essence of what we're trying to offer. And that's an important aspect of the path that we're trying to communicate. So it's not just about ideas, and it's not just about practices, it's also about participating in some kind of a community. So it's not just an incidental thing or an added on thing, it's actually a fundamental or essential aspect of the path. So that's what we've been trying to offer as much as we can as part of this course. And all the offerings that we have are all aspects are all trying to communicate aspects of that. So one really good way of just plugging in with other people and practicing is to do a course, so like this one. What we've got coming up in November is 3 more courses. Some of you might have done some of them already. Just to say, there's actually no harm in doing a course that you've done before. You can pick up different points, different insights. In a way, every time you do the practice, it's slightly different. You can go deeper. That's one of the wonderful things about that. Anyway, so I just wanted to tell you about a few courses that are coming up. So the first one is what's called a creative response to uncertain times. And this really is kind of like an overview of the most fundamental aspects of Buddhist practice. So some of them will be familiar to you if you've done this course, like we talk about mindfulness. We also go into ethics, what Buddhist ethics means, what it means to have an ethical practice in the absence of the idea of a creator God who sets rules that you either follow or don't follow. It also talks about the Buddha, who the Buddha was, how he wasn't a God, how he was an awakened human being, and what that actually means. and how we ourselves have the potential to grow into an awakened human being. It also explores what you could call the wisdom aspects of the Buddha's teaching, a little bit like what we did earlier, hearing a little bit more about change and what that means, and how through engaging with it we can affect a profound transformation in our lives. And we also go into Sangha in more depth and hear a little bit about our particular Sangha, this Buddhist Sangha, to out in the Buddhist community. So there's a course led by Dalai, one of our order members, and that starts on Saturday the 14th of November. That's a 5-week course from 10:30 until 12:30. And yeah, that's probably goes without saying, but it's on Zoom. And there's a course that's starting on at this time. So it's in a way intended, well, it's not in a way, it is intended as a follow-on from this course. So last week we looked at mindfulness of others, and we just kind of touched into that. We also learnt, if you hadn't done it before, the metta bhavana practice, which is a practice where we can actively cultivate awareness of others, mindfulness of others. And not just aware that they're there, but trying to see things from their perspective. So developing that imaginative identification that I was talking about last week. So what we're going to do on this course is, in a way, go deeper with that and really go into the metta bhavana practice and try and discover the potential it has for transforming our attitudes to ourselves, but more importantly, our attitudes towards other people in the world that we live in, and basically trying to be a little bit more loving. So very often, the distress that arises in our life arises because of conflict and because of aversion to other people. There's always going to be difficulty with other people, but we don't have to generate the added distress and pain and even violence and injury that come from aversion, from ill will or hatred. So if we're really serious about well-being, our well-being and others' well-being, we really need to get to grips with this tendency to produce hatred out of unpleasant Vedana, really. And the metta bhavana is really, really key for that. It's a really, really key practice. So we're going to be looking at the different aspects of the practice through the course of the 5 weeks of that course, and really getting into grips with it. So that starts on Tuesday the 17th of November. And Tony, who's one of our team leaders, did the course recently, and he thought it was really good. And I just asked him if he'd say something about what he liked about it. Are you there, Tony?
Yeah, I am. Yeah, thank you, Yanadara. Yeah, good. So I done the course with Yanadara in 2018 and 2019 again, in the centre, and yeah, for me, I feel like the insights that I got out of having that run of looking at my metta bhavana practice really, I mean, yeah, just had a fundamental kind of positive effect on my life. I mean, yeah, like before I learned the metta bhavana, and namely before the work I'd done, I think over those 2 courses, I would have identified as being a really angry person. Like I did anger, that was my thing. Just like my dad did, and then like it's a real typical family thing. And I just and I don't anymore. I'm just more or less, and I'm just particularly with the insights I think I developed, particularly towards metta, towards myself, getting a good run at looking at that, a context to explore that with other people, and work with the mechanics of the practice and go at it creatively in different ways. It always got quite mechanical for me. I've become quite hard on myself, and particularly also shifts in relationship with the difficult person, that have really just improved my life, in my relationship with that person. Like so, really couldn't recommend it more.
Right. Thanks, Tony. Thanks for those words. Cheers. So the other course that we've got coming up is called What the World Needs Now. So this course is all about looking at what Buddhism has to say in response to current world problems. So we all know what they are. There's a virus. There's all kinds of things going on. There's conflict around race. There's ecological, potential catastrophe around the corner. There's current ecological challenges. There's so much difficulty in the world that we're probably all aware of. And this course, like I say, is all about exploring what Buddhism has got to say about that. It's highlighting the fact that Buddhism is not just an introspective tradition, that it's got quite a bit to say about the transformation of society and societies. So Vajrashur is going to be leading that course with Sadai Sihi, and that starts on Wednesday the 18th of November, and that is also a 5-week course. Yeah. So those are 3 courses, all starting the second week in November. So a creative response to uncertain times on Saturday the 14th, Who Hates the Metta Bhavana at this time on Tuesday nights, and then What the World Needs Now on Wednesday nights. Love to see you there. And ordinarily what we would do is at this time we'd also just highlight our retreats. So our retreats are a little bit different because they're happening at home, and we just actually had a retreat over the weekend. Because of a prior commitment, I wasn't able to participate in it myself, but the people who did really loved it. There's about 50 people on it, I gather, and there was so much good feedback about it. So it's actually surprising how deep you can go on an online retreat, even if you're living in your house. And part of what we do with these online retreats is we talk about how to make the most of being on retreat when you're actually at home. So that retreat is, that retreat was happening over the bank holiday weekend that's just gone. And we're going to do a week-long retreat after Christmas. So it'll probably start on the 27th of December. The details we're still finalising the details of that. But do keep an eye out for that, because going on a retreat is really the best thing that you can do for your practice of meditation, engaging more deeply with Buddhism, and really getting a different perspective on the life that you have. Not just a different perspective, but a truer perspective and a more liberating perspective. That's what retreats are all about. And it's a really particularly good thing to do at the end of a year before you head into the next year. And what a year we've had. So it's a way of taking stock of what's happened, having the space to do that, asking yourself some of the real questions that one needs to ask oneself, and then heading into the new year with a real clear sense of what you'd like that year to be about for you and for others. So that's coming up at the end of the year. Also, just to remind you about the regular meditation that we have at the centre. If you want to meditate with others, you can do that every weekday morning and every weekday lunchtime. There's more details on our website. And lastly, I just wanted to say that, if you have made friends on the course, if you've made connections with people, do keep them up. That'll be the thing that really helps you to stay connected with this practice. Yes, so just want to mention that as well. And also our social media. If you're interested in social media, we're on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And just search for Dublin Buddhist Centre. And also, all of our information about all of our events is on our website, which is dublinbuddhistcentre.org. And just before I finish this little bit, I just wanted to remind you that, we're doing all of our courses on a donation basis at the moment. And just speaking really personally, I'm just really loving that. It always felt so awkward to charge for the Dharma, to charge for giving the Buddha's teaching. So it feels much easier in a way, much more natural just to sort of offer it. And if people value it and they're benefiting from it, they can sort of give something back, as it were. That's the most traditional way that Buddhism is communicated. That goes right back to the Buddha. So it feels really good just to be able to do that in the sort of the most traditional way, but also the way that feels most natural. And also actually that benefits most people, because there's no barrier in terms of money, that anybody who wants to can participate in anything that we're doing. So we'd really like to keep that going, even beyond, but when we have to, not when we have to, but when we can meet in person, which will hopefully be not too distant, who knows. But we really want to keep operating this way. We're all really appreciating it and loving it, the team at the centre. Yeah, so I just wanted to mention that just before we go on to the break. So it's just gone. It's exactly 8 o'clock. So we'll come back in 10 minutes, and yeah, do feed through any questions that you might have. Bearing in mind that this is the last time that we'll have questions on this course. Yeah. So I'll see you in 10 minutes time at 8:10. So yeah, so there's a few questions, which is great. So someone was just asking just a very simple practical question, which is, will the videos stay up on YouTube? And they will. Yeah, so the videos from the course will be there. And the next question is there a fundamental difference between Tibetan Buddhism taught by the Dalai Lama and Tibetan Buddhism? So what I would say is there isn't a fundamental difference. What there is a difference of emphasis. So different Buddhist traditions will have quite a bit that's common. So you'll find many of the same teachings. So the Dalai Lama will talk about the Four Noble Truths. He'll talk about the importance of love and compassion. He'll also refer to some of the same symbols. So the symbol of the Buddha, for example, the importance of offerings. There's also practices that will be similar between different traditions. So mindfulness, for example, is contained in many, if not all, Buddhist traditions. Be talked about in slightly different ways, but it will be there. So what you'll find with different Buddhist traditions is there's a difference of emphasis. So in the Tibetan Buddhist tradition, for example, we emphasize the importance of spiritual community and friendship. So that's integral to our particular approach to Buddhism. We value and really strongly emphasize the importance of commitment, committing oneself to practice, particularly spoken of in terms of committing oneself to what's known as the three jewels, which is the Buddha, the ideal of human awakening, the Dharma, which is the teaching or the path to that, and the Sangha, which is the spiritual community of those people who are similarly committed. We also talk about the value of working together with other people who've got a shared commitment. We also talk about the importance of the arts, so seeing how Western artistic traditions, or in our context as Westerners, can communicate Buddhist values, even human values, the same way that the Dharma, the Buddhist teaching, can communicate them. And also how, if we understand what we respond to, we can begin to draw our emotions into the path of transformation which we're engaged in through art, through images, through music, through stories, and so on. So that's all part of the path as we teach it. So I wouldn't say that it's a fundamental difference, but there would be a difference in emphasis between the way we approach Buddhism and the approach that we taken in a more traditional Tibetan context. So another question, how to let go of negative chitta in the moment if it goes with strong body pain and anxiety? So that's a tricky question. It's a tricky thing to do. Maybe one thing about negative chitta, or we tend to use the word unskillful. So rather than that we're in a state of mind which is constricted or painful in some way. One of the important considerations is not worrying so much about getting out of it in the moment, because sometimes you can't. But what you can do is set up the conditions so it doesn't repeat. And that's where ethics comes in. So often if we're, say for example, if we're very, very annoyed, the tendency is to express our annoyance in terms of negative or harsh or critical or angry or aversive speech. And then that will exacerbate whatever situation we're in, and then we're more likely to find ourselves in an unskillful state of mind in the future, or an unskillful chitta. So often what we can do is, we might not be able to change our mental state, but what we can do is change how we behave. which might mean just actually keeping our mouth closed. I was in a situation over the weekend. I was in a meeting, and somebody said something which I found really annoying. I felt, I felt that they completely misunderstood what I was trying to say and assumed that I was trying to tell them what they should do and how they should do their job, which actually I wasn't trying to do that at all. I felt I was just trying to be creative. And I knew at that moment, if I challenged that person, it wouldn't have helped. So I just had to keep my mouth shut. Now I may pick that up with that person at a later date, if I think that's going to be helpful. But in that moment of time, I just had to keep my mouth shut. That felt like it was the most appropriate and most helpful thing to do. I wouldn't always do that, but at that moment, that's what I felt I needed to do. And then I was still annoyed a bit after the meeting, and I just had to sort of wait until that passed and not moan about it, because that would have just kept it going. So yeah, there's quite often the way of responding to a negative chitta is just paying attention to what we're likely to do in the way of behaviour. Another response is just to come back to just the immediate physical experience of Vedana, so painful Vedana or even pleasant Vedana, because actually sometimes pleasure can be also lead us to get a bit intoxicated and not notice what we're doing. So often we can be a bit callous or a bit cruel when we're actually quite happy, because we're weirdly, sometimes when we're in an unhappy state, we're more able to empathize with others. And if we're really happy, sometimes we can be quite callous towards other people's experience, which in the long run will be negative for us. Hopefully that answers your question. How to direct back chitta into the moment if a thought pops up and steals our attention from the moment. Well, yeah, again, I mean, that's basically, the fact that you've noticed that you've gotten distracted is important. Basically, as soon as you notice you've gotten distracted, you're already back again. So it's important, I think, to celebrate that rather than feel that as a failure. I think what I've learned how to do is not worry about my mind as much, So if I'm talking to somebody and I notice that that I've gotten distracted, I just bring my attention back and let go of the fact that I've gotten distracted. What we can often do is we can then give ourselves a hard time about the fact that we've gotten distracted. So there's a kind of a bit of an art of just actually recognizing that, it's happened. It's already happened, so there's no point in getting upset about it. It's like the old saying, there's no use crying over spilt milk. There's no use crying over our mind when we've got distracted. You just come back and see if you can develop interest in what it is that you need to be paying attention to. And then how to manage it outside the moment when past experiences pop up. This is actually, this is where communication can really help. I mentioned that earlier, is often it can really help to talk with our experience, talk over what's going on in our mind with other people. That can release an awful lot of psychological pressure. Just by being able to share our inner world with somebody else. So this is why friendship is so crucial and so fundamental to the path, that it just enables us to let go of an awful lot just by saying what is true, what's really happened. So it's one of the mysterious aspects of communication, that just saying something that's happened, telling somebody else, allowing somebody else to witness that, has a transformative effect on our relationship to that thing that's happened. Like we have that saying, don't we, in English at least, getting something off our chest. So something's happened, we're not happy about it, we might feel regret about it, and we tell somebody and we get it off our chest, we feel unburdened by it. So it's a really, really important function of communication between friends, and that's part of what we try and cultivate in our Buddhist community, is a kind of culture where that happens, and that's part of the way we communicate as deeply and honestly as we can. That's one answer. Also, there might be a few more questions. Here we go. Yeah, I was consistent in my meditation for a few months, and I'm dropping it for a while because of a difficult situation, and I've lost my routines in every aspect. Any advice on how to be consistent again, please? So one bit of advice is to plug in with others. So it's always easier to do something with other people than it is to do it purely off your own bat. So you could, you could, if you've made a connection with somebody else in the course, you could meditate with them. That might sound odd, but it actually makes a difference. Just you could decide to have a Zoom call every day at a particular time. So then you're not just doing it for yourself, you're also doing it to support the other person as they support you. We've also got these meditations at the centre that you might like to plug into. So that's one bit of advice. Another bit of advice is just to start, and start small. Just say, okay, all I can manage to begin with is 15 minutes or 10 minutes, but really do that 10 minutes or 15 minutes and just build it up again. It's amazing how you can build something up from something quite small quite quickly. You could even just say, well, okay, I'll meditate for a minute longer every day or every week or something, and then you would have built up your practice. Use the lead-throughs. It's much easier to meditate if you've got someone to remind you what you're trying to do. So do feel free to use the lead-throughs that are on our website or as part of the YouTube videos for the course. That's a few things I can think of. Another thing, maybe this is more of a deeper kind of attitudinal thing, is just remind yourself why you want to do it. So try and connect with the benefits that meditation brings, and then you'll really want to do it. If you really feel connected with what the benefits are, you'll just want to do it. Hi, I know this might be out of context, but I've been reading about other aspects of Buddhism online, etc. How does the concept of refuge in the Dharma follow on from what we have learned? That is, true refuge from all material world and intoxications. Well, I suppose in a way you could say that you're taking refuge in something that points beyond itself. So the Dharma, in a way, is a material thing. That the Dharma is words, it's ideas, it's teachings, it's sentences, it's images. But what's particular about those images and words and sentences and ideas is they lead beyond themselves. They allow a sense of ultimately going beyond the conditioned world altogether. So that by going for refuge and pursuing them, you let go of your attachment to worldly things and eventually are liberated. So, so it's a bit like the statue. The statue is a conditioned thing. It's made by somebody from a certain substance. It's put together, it's confected. If I hit it with a hammer, it would break into pieces. But hopefully what that statue communicates is a sense of what you yourself can grow into, a sense of possibility through the arrangement, the beautiful arrangement. I'm just keeping it brief because I'm running out of time. Yeah, so hopefully that answers your question. Hi, I know this. Oh, that's the same question. When communicating with another, is it best to focus on the body of the breath while listening? Well, if you're communicating with another person, the best thing to focus on is them, like looking at them, listening to them, noticing what they're doing with their body. Being aware of just being aware directly of them. That's the best way of being when communicating with another person. So what we're doing when we do mindfulness practice, so for example, the mindfulness of breathing or mindful walk, is we're practicing the capacity to pay attention to something or someone. And what happens is that then we're able to apply that to any situation that we're in. Whether it's talking to another person, whether it's writing an email, whether it's baking a cake, we just develop that ability to be fully present, fully there doing whatever it is that we're doing. So that, and within that, there's kind of responsiveness as well. So that's what's so wonderful about communicating with another person, is there can be a kind of responsiveness to that. You're not just exchanging information. So yeah, it's probably enough. So you could say, yeah, what we're trying to do is do what we're doing as wholeheartedly and as fully as we can, in a way so that we let go of self-centeredness, you can say. So that's where mindfulness can take you, particularly mindfulness of others, where we actually just let go of this feeling that we have. It's even a conviction that we're the center of everything. So I was talking earlier about mindfulness of reality, and we looked at that in terms of the meditation by just focusing on the breathing and by just exploring whether or not we feel that we own it, or in what sense we own it. And ideally, hopefully, recognizing that actually we don't. It's just not ours. In a way, nothing is ours. And if we really embody that, what you get is a state of pure responsiveness without that sense of a sort of a center. I'm a center, and I'm trying to organize everything in the world around myself. So we really think that, we really believe that everything in the world revolves around us. Now, we know that that's silly, but if you're honest with yourself, that's the way we all think. We really do think that we're the center of the universe. And it doesn't take much reflection to realize that that's not true. It takes an awful lot of practice to live as if that's not true. Yeah, to live with the conviction that other people are equally as real as we are. And then there's a profound shift in the way that we respond to other people, the way that we live in the world, if we're able to really live from the knowledge and the understanding and the awareness that other people are as real as we are. So that's really what the Metta Bhavana is gearing us towards, is aiming us towards, is a sort of a purification of our egoism, of our self-centeredness. So we begin to let go of it and really see the fact that other people are real, just to put it very plainly. So I just wanted to just explore this in meditation. Oh, someone's put a question mark in, in the question mark in the chat box. So maybe just say a little bit more. So basically what I'm saying is that what we're trying to do in this stage is become aware of reality. And, oh, that was an accident. Anyway, I'll keep going. We're trying to recognize that other people are real as we are real. Yeah. So it's really as simple as that. So that's actually awareness of reality. Yeah. So recognizing that other people are real in the same way that we are real. So we start by connecting with the reality of ourselves, and then we begin to explore the reality of other people imaginatively. And that begins to affect a shift in our deepest kind of attitudes to the world, which is really what the Metta Bhavana is trying to bring about. So we'll just do a short meditation and just to kind of connect with this kind of attitude. So if you just want to set yourself up for meditation, and in a moment we'll make a start. So you don't have to do anything terribly difficult, except just tuning into what's going on, particularly what's going on in and around the heart area. And tuning into that knowledge that you have, that you are real, that you experience things. fact that you know that if you hold your hand over a flame, you pull it away. If you go outside and it's cold, you feel that on your skin. If someone says something to you that's insulting, you find it painful. If somebody says something to you that's complimentary, you find it pleasant. And right now, you'll be experiencing all kinds of things. To the body, the mind. And then thinking of a friend. Just pick the first person who comes into your mind when you say the word friend. And bringing them to mind as vividly as you can. So what you're trying to do is evoke their life as an independent reality to your life. Evoke a conviction and a knowledge that they are actually real in the way that you know directly that you are real. And you want your life to turn out well. That's part of the reality of your life. And your friend also wants their life to turn out well. That's the reality of their life. So just sitting with that reality, that knowledge. You desire your own well-being. They desire their own well-being. and so does everybody. So you might like to think of the other people that have been in your discussion group, your breakout group each week. We also want their life to turn out well. And we've actually participated in that. We've shared in that process of trying to affect that by being more aware. And what's really beautiful is that when we make an effort to develop our mind, when we make an effort to become more aware, the positive effects of that spill out from our life into the lives of others. We can't help it. We can't help but have an effect on our environment, on the people around us, on the world around us. So bearing that in mind, just asking yourself, well, what have I learnt on this course? What have I learnt in the last 8 weeks from the practice I've done, from the conversations I've had, from the reading I've done? What have I learnt? What perspectives have I developed? What things have I come to value, or what practices have I come to value? And what do I want to do with all of this? What do I want to do with what I've learned? What do I want to do to bring it to the next level, to deepen, to begin to and continue to nurture the seeds that have been planted? So what practical steps do I want to take? So then bringing the meditation to a close. So we've come to the end of the course, and I just wanted to do a little verse. So this is something that actually next door you might have been able to hear some of the evenings. There's a puja going on next door. A puja is quite an elaborate Buddhist ritual, and it's a way of ritually expressing some of the most fundamental values and principles of Buddhism. And I thought we could do a little, very simple little thing now along those lines. And it's just to express this idea that whatever benefit I have derived from this course, may it be for the benefit of all. So it's just a very simple little verse that expresses that. So what I'd invite you to do is I'll say a line, and then I just invite you to say it. And it's just, like I say, giving expression to this very simple idea that we're wishing that any benefit that we've received from the practice that we've done goes to benefit everybody. And before I do that, before we finish with that, I just wanted to thank all of you for coming along and staying to the end. There's 55 of us here, which is pretty good going. And I also want to thank the team. So quite a number of people have been leading the groups. I won't name everybody, but thanks you all so much for just supporting the course and being here every week and helping just create something a bit bit more than just me talking. I also want to thank Daniel, who's just been really, really fantastic, very solid at doing all the technical stuff behind the scenes that's enabled this to happen. So we'll just do that verse, and then we'll finish. So you'll be able to hear Daniel's voice, if you can answer the verse when I say it. So this is transference of merit and self-surrender. May the merit gained.
May the merit gained.
In my acting thus.
In my acting thus.
Go to the alleviation of the suffering of all beings.
Go to the alleviation of the suffering of all beings.
My personality throughout my existences.
My personality throughout my existences.
My possessions.
My possessions.
And my merit in all three ways.
And my merit in all three ways.
I give up without regard to myself.
I give up without regard to myself.
For the benefit of all beings.
For the benefit of all beings.
Just as the earth and other elements.
Just as the earth and other elements.
Are serviceable in many ways.
Are serviceable in many ways.
To the infinite number of beings.
To the infinite number of beings.
Inhabiting limitless space.
Inhabiting limitless space.
So may I become.
So may I become.
That which maintains all beings.
That which maintains all beings.
Situated throughout space.
Situated throughout space.
So long as all have not attained.
So long as all have not attained.
To peace.
To peace.